In the year 1700, a king died without children. This happens. Kings, despite considerable effort on their part and the part of their courtiers, occasionally failed to produce heirs. It is an occupational hazard of monarchy. What made this particular death unusual was what it set in motion. Charles II of Spain, last of the Spanish Habsburgs, a man so comprehensively inbred that his medical problems could fill a separate video, and may yet, died on the 1st of November 1700, leaving behind him the largest empire in the world and no obvious person to give it to. What followed was 13 years of war across 5 continents, and at the center of it, quietly, permanently, in gold on blue, was a coat of arms, specifically 3 fleurs-de-lis. In 1700, a single heraldic decision helped plunge Europe into the most destructive war of its century. This is that story. To understand the heraldry, you need to understand the inheritance. Spain in 1700 was not merely Spain. It was an empire, the Iberian Peninsula, the Spanish Netherlands, roughly modern Belgium, vast territories in Italy, and the entirety of Spanish America. Whoever inherited Spain inherited the most powerful territorial collection in the world. Charles II had no children. He had 2 candidates waiting in the wings. The first, Philip, Duke of Anjou, 17 years old, grandson of Louis XIV of France, the most powerful monarch in Europe. The second, Archduke Charles of Austria, the Habsburg candidate backed by England, the Dutch Republic, and the Holy Roman Emperor. Both had legitimate claims through Spanish princesses. Both wanted Spain. Neither was prepared to share. On his deathbed, Charles II made his decision. He left everything, the entire Spanish Empire, to Philip of Anjou. Philip was proclaimed Philip V of Spain on the 16th of November 1700 at Versailles. And then he did something that, to a heraldist, was louder than any proclamation. He changed the coat of arms. The coat of arms of Spain by 1700 was one of the most complex heraldic achievements in existence. A quartered shield recording centuries of dynastic unions: Castile, Leon, Aragon, Navarre, Granada. Every quarter was a chapter. Every charge was a memory. It was a shield that told the entire history of Spain's unification. Philip V kept all of it, and then he added in the center of the shield a small escutcheon, an inset shield bearing the arms of his dynasty, 3 gold fleurs-de-lis on blue, the arms of Bourbon-Anjou, the arms of France. This is called an escutcheon of pretence. In heraldry, placing a smaller shield at the center of your arms declares dynastic identity. It says, "I am of this house. This is who I am." Philip was not decorating. He was making a permanent statement in the language of heraldry that the House of Bourbon now ruled Spain. And the rest of Europe noticed. England and the Dutch Republic had been watching France nervously for decades. Louis XIV had spent his entire reign expanding French power. Now his grandson sat on the Spanish throne, with his dynastic symbol carved into the Spanish coat of arms. If Philip remained King of Spain, and if Louis could exercise influence over him, then France and Spain would effectively operate as a single power, flanking the rest of Europe on 3 sides. The 3 fleurs-de-lis on a blue field were not a heraldic decoration. They were a geopolitical threat. In May of 1702, England, the Dutch Republic, and the Holy Roman Empire declared war. The War of the Spanish Succession lasted 13 years. It was fought on 5 fronts: the Low Countries, the Rhine, the Danube, northern Italy, and Spain itself. It reached the colonies in North America, where it was called Queen Anne's War. It was, by any measure, a general European catastrophe. The Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill, ancestor of a rather more famous Churchill, led Allied forces to a series of crushing victories, most notably at Blenheim in 1704. I mention Blenheim because it is important. I also mention it because Sir Geoffrey finds it satisfying when battles have memorable names. But the point, the heraldic point, is this. The war began, in substantial part, because of what Philip V put on a shield. The fleurs-de-lis at the center of the Spanish arms declared a dynastic union that Europe could not accept. They were the visible, permanent, legally recognized symbol of exactly what England feared, a Bourbon empire stretching from Paris to Madrid to the Americas. Remove the fleurs-de-lis, declare the two crowns formally separate, and the case for war weakens considerably. Keep them, and you are announcing in a language all of Europe read fluently that the Bourbon dynasty now controls half the world. Louis XIV kept them. The war continued. 13 years, hundreds of thousands of dead. Battles across 5 continents. For 3 fleurs-de-lis on a blue field. Sir Geoffrey is not saying this to be dramatic. This is simply what happened. The war ended with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713. Philip V was allowed to remain King of Spain. England and the Dutch had decided, after 13 years of fighting, that removing him entirely was more trouble than it was worth. But the treaty came with conditions. Philip was required to formally renounce his claim to the French throne. He and his descendants would never unite Spain and France under one crown. And the escutcheon of fleurs-de-lis? It stayed. It is there today. The modern coat of arms of Spain still carries at its center the Bourbon escutcheon, 3 gold fleurs-de-lis on blue. A symbol placed there in 1700 to declare a dynastic claim, which helped cause a 13-year war which the treaty tried to resolve, and the symbol remained anyway. Heraldry is remarkably difficult to undo, which brings me to England. Because England, for 400 years, carried a heraldic claim that everyone knew was false. The fleurs-de-lis of France appeared in the English royal arms in 1340, when Edward III claimed the French throne through his mother, and had the audacity to simply add French heraldry to his shield, as though he already had it. England did not control France. England fought the 100 Years' War partly on the basis of this claim. England lost. And yet the fleurs-de-lis stayed. They were there under Henry V, under Henry VIII, under Elizabeth I, under the Stuarts. They were not removed until 1801, 461 years after Edward III put them there. Removed, finally, only because the Act of Union with Ireland made the arms too crowded to carry a claim that had been meaningless for centuries. 461 years of carrying a heraldic argument that had been settled by military defeat. This is the nature of heraldry. It does not forget. It does not revise. It holds its position on the field and waits, for decades or centuries, for someone to finally act, or for a war to settle the matter, whichever comes first. I am not suggesting the fleurs-de-lis caused the war the way a trigger causes a weapon to fire. The war had political, economic, and dynastic causes, decades in the making. But the coat of arms was the visible, permanent, public declaration that made the abstract threat concrete. Every European court read heraldry. Every ambassador, every minister, every king understood what it meant when the Bourbon arms appeared at the center of the Spanish shield. There was no room for ambiguity. The arms said, Bourbon. Spain is Bourbon. And Europe responded. This logic is not an ancient irrelevance. The idea that a symbol, publicly displayed on an official emblem, constitutes a binding declaration of intent. That is the same logic that governs flags, seals, and official imagery today. When a country changes its flag, It is making a statement. When a new dynasty places its arms at the center of an existing shield, it is making a statement. Heraldry is not dead. It has simply changed its medium. The fleurs-de-lis are still on the Spanish coat of arms, 325 years later. Sir Geoffrey finds this either deeply satisfying or deeply alarming, and has not yet decided which. The War of the Spanish Succession ended in 1713. Philip V reigned as King of Spain until 1746. The fleurs-de-lis remained. England removed its French fleurs-de-lis in 1801, after 4.5 centuries. And the three lions of England, possibly born from Richard's captivity in Austria, as we discussed last time, are still there, still gold, still on red, still walking forward with their heads turned to face whoever is watching. Heraldry remembers what history forgets. I am Sir Geoffrey Blackwell-Dunmore of Chester. Next time, we turn to fiction. The great storytellers have always understood that a house is not a house without its arms. We will examine the heraldry of the great fictional dynasties. What they got right, what they got wrong, and what Sir Geoffrey would have done differently. Subscribe. 2 weeks. Bring your knowledge of dragons. I have opinions.